Hi guys, and welcome back to the Wake and State podcast. I'm joined today by Stephen, who you'll find on the MT4MH YouTube channel and also on X. Stephen is someone I find particularly inspiring. He came to a keto stroke carnivore lifestyle in hopes to combat what had been a lifelong struggle with severe mental health. Stephen was very open and honest during our chat and offered great insight into his mindset during the various struggles along his journey. Stephen not only used metabolic therapy to combat his own struggles, but is now using a similar approach to fight his daughter's ADHD and OCD. Stephen is very knowledgeable, and as our chat will show, his passion for wellness and life in general is evident. His sense of humour and personality shines throughout our conversation, and although longer than my usual chats, we left so much untouched. I find him particularly interesting and plan on having another chat with Stephen in the coming weeks. He strikes me as a good man who is aiming to be the best possible father and husband he can be. I know you guys will love learning more about him and his wonderful daughter, Samantha. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We really do appreciate the continued support that you're showing us on YouTube, on X, and on Spotify. Hi, Stephen. Thanks so much for taking the time to have a wee chat today. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm having an excellent hair day today, wouldn't you say?
Listen, many people have said that ketogenic diet is good for hair growth, but that is fantastic.
So my buddy Tim that I'm going to talk about, he was reviewing our YouTube and he said, well, you got to show more of Samantha because otherwise it's just some bald, boring dude talking. So, hey, Tim, I may keep the same content. I might be boring, but took care of that bald problem. This is for you, pal.
The story that you have for yourself personally and for your daughter is one that I find absolutely fascinating. And I think it's a kind of story, especially with your daughter, that can help a lot of people. So what I kind of want to focus on first, Stephen, because I want people to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
So I'd like an idea of kind of a wee bit more about you, maybe a wee bit of an introduction, just so that people know your story and what's went on, if that's okay.
Sure. Well, first, I want people to check out my shirt because anybody with kids knows Frozen. This is Christoph and Sven's ice delivery business.
Yes.
People think I'm just wearing a regular ice shirt.
I like that.
And I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy who helped me make these logos. You guys will see in my story why this stuff is not just branding, but these things are very important to me. If anybody out there wants a logo done, hit me up on a DM and I can try to work with him for you.
Yeah, no, perfect. That's what I said. It's the fantastic logos at the back, so he obviously does good work.
Yeah, he does. And the fire, I mean, I have the fire tats. I used to do fireworks as a side job. The fire represents the passion inside me, the passion for life that I'm hoping is going to come out as we're talking.
Yeah. No, absolutely love that. I find you're a very fascinating gentleman. You're very passionate, and I think the people are going to love just listening to what you've got to say and learning a wee bit more about you.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I am grateful to be a guest on a podcast, and if anybody actually listens to it, I will be even more grateful. That would be great.
No, I'm confident they will. You're a fascinating man.
Thank you. So I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Matt. He was the one who showed me that there are others out there that are like me, well, that are just like him and I. And he was the last bit of fuel that was added to my fire that sparked me on social media and making videos. So Matt, I thank you. I want to thank Diane with a Y. From the minute I got on socials, Diane has been pumping me up. She has been supporting me, sending me messages, and you can just feel the love pouring out of her. It's been amazing. Cool thing about Diane is that she does, like me, she does bipolar, keto for bipolar, but she's a vegan. So she eats all plants, no meat, while I eat all meat and no plants. And I just think it's such a cool dynamic out there. And then you have someone like my daughter who's right in between. She does a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's fantastic. Diane, I want to thank you for all your support. And lastly, but most importantly to me, is my new friend Tim that hit me up on Reddit a couple of months ago. And he was the initial spark that really lit the fire in me that led me to do the HFBO and the handle and have this whole idea that I want to try to have my own message out there. So I just want to thank everybody for being a spark to my fire. Thank you.
I absolutely love that.
So I want to start out by sharing just quickly the details of my current fast and my blood glucose and ketones. So I have a Keto Mojo that I test with. I typically test twice a day, once in the morning fasted, and then at night I eat once a day, typically in the afternoon. So right now I am fasted for about 20 hours. I ate yesterday at about 2 o'clock or so, give or take. So my bloods last night, I was glucose 85, ketones 4.6. I woke up this morning, they were 84, 3.4. Just now before we started the show, I was 88, 3.0. So for me, these are like rocking numbers. And you can see that my glucose is going to be like in the 80s pretty much all the time. The reason I'm sharing this is because I've gotten a lot of feedback and people are finding this stuff interesting and they want me to share it. So I'm putting it on my socials and I'm putting it on Reddit. And here I am talking about it on the show.
Amazing. Very good. Very stable numbers that you're getting there. That's fantastic.
All right. So before I begin the meat and potatoes of my story, I'm going to be referring to the 1 through 10 scale. And so when I'm off, I'm going to say that I'm off and I'm on also. So when I'm off, that's bad. And that's when I'm not on the diet. And on a 1 to 10 scale, I'm going to be like a 1 to a 3. This is more applies to 20 years ago in the beginning part of my story. When I'm on, that's when I'm good. And with regular keto, I can be a 6 to 8. But on the HFBO, the high fat beef only, I'm going to be a 10 or a 10 plus or even a 10 plus plus.
Brilliant.
So I have a couple of paragraphs here I'm going to read, and then I have later on it's going to be notes, and I'm going to hopefully to just do some natural talking. So when I'm off, I am irritable and angry, and I act like a huge jerk. I snap at my kid, I'm mean to my wife, and our relationships are greatly strained. I procrastinate, and I can't start projects. If I do, I don't fully finish them. My wife's joking nickname for me when I do that is 75. From only doing 75% of something, and that's probably generous. When I'm off, my brain, it malfunctions and it does not perceive events correctly. If a stranger in a parking lot glances at me for just a split second, they annoy me. I want to know who they think they are. What are you looking at? Why are you looking at me? They barely even glance at me. And that annoyed feeling from that innocent stranger will stick with me for a while. It could be 5 minutes, it could be a half hour, it could ruin my whole afternoon. When I'm off, life feels impossible and I hate it. I hate life, I hate myself, and I hate what I see in the mirror so much. However, when I stick to this high-fat, beef-only diet, I'm going to be on and I'm going to be at a 10. So when I'm on, I'm happy and I'm calm. Remember, when I'm off, I'm irritable and angry. When I'm on, I'm happy and I'm calm. And I'm smiling and whistling. I can handle my kids' difficulties with ease, and we are what she calls best buddies. I am also friendly to my wife, and our family dynamic is just vastly different. My brain no longer malfunctions and does not process events with distortion. That same passerby in the parking lot, they might get a smile from me, or I might not even notice them, or I might notice them and it doesn't really register, or I might just be super friendly. I might say, hey, nice weather we're having, or, enjoy that product you just got at the store today.
Yeah.
When I'm on, I tackle my to-do list. I'm like at it with vigor, and I do everything from start to finish, 100%. Best of all is when I'm on, life is so easy, and I'm excited for every minute. I wake up happy with great energy, and I remain energetic all throughout the day. I'm going to steal a line from your previous guest, Brett. I have effortless happiness. I don't have to work for it. I'm just happy all day long. When I'm on, I love life. I love being alive. I love myself. And I don't mind so much what I see in the mirror anymore.
I really, really appreciate you sharing that firstly. The contrast between when you're off and when you're on, we're not talking we're talking worlds apart. You're a different person. You're a much happier, more stable, loving person when you're on. That's fine, but a lot of people never get to the realisation that when they're off that it's problematic and they have the courage to try to change that. What I massively respect about you is you know this isn't acceptable and you're putting things in place for you to sort that. You need a lot of credit and you should be proud of yourself, Stephen.
Oh, thank you. It's hard for me to accept credit in my life, but thank you. I appreciate that.
No, of course.
So people have asked why do I do high fat beef only? Why am I beef only? It seems so crazy to some people. So I do this for my family. That's the main reason. I want to be a decent husband. I want to be a competent father. I need to give a huge shout out to my wife, Lisa, because she has the patience of an angel. People that know her, even outside of our family, they'll tell you that she has the patience of an angel. And she likes to say that she's got 2 kids in the house, which it's true. And in a funny, childish way, it is, because Samantha and I are like brother and sister. But unfortunately for Lisa, both of her kids are very troubled. And we are both extremely fortunate that Lisa supports us and is here for us while we try to manage our symptoms.
Amazing. She sounds like a great woman.
She is. We're very fortunate. So, high fat beef only. Why do I do that? Well, I can do a regular ketogenic diet at a lower percentage. I can keep my fat at 70 to 80%, and I'll still be at a 7 to 8 on that 10 scale, which is good. It's good. And if that's all I knew, I'd be okay with that. But now I've been a 10 or a 10 plus, and at that 7 or 8, I'm going to have good energy. I'm going to do my tasks from start to finish, going to be productive, but I'm still going to be irritable, still going to be angry.
Yeah.
And it's that extra 2 points where that calm and that happy comes in for me. So I can also do a higher fat keto, maybe keep my fat in the 80s and still eat foods that I react to, like chicken and pork or cocoa butter. I mean, we can get into all those things later. But
Yeah.
if I do that, I'm still going to be about an 8, which again is good, but it's not great. I'm going to have skin issues. I'm going to have the irritability, the anger. And it's, for me, it's the magic happens when I do this high fat beef only. And I get that from an 8 to a 10. And that's when the irritable and angry becomes calm and happy. And that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to be. So that's why I do what I do.
That's fantastic. And it's amazing that you've been able to notice just how much of a difference sticking to beef only and upping the fat to obviously 90% or so. But it's amazing that your mental health is dramatically affected by what you eat. And you particularly, you seem quite sensitive to that as well.
That's true. And this has been 5 years of me testing this and not being able to accept that this was my fate. And let me try to add this back in, try to add that. And I've tested these things a million times. And so that's how I know.
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing. You've been here, you've tried, you've experimented, we've had some slip ups, and now you know this is the course for me to be the best father and the best husband that I can be, and the best man. No, I think that's fantastic. Now, Stephen, obviously, for you, you haven't just obviously only been on this type of lifestyle. Things led to you being on this lifestyle. So your background, are you happy to share kind of in depth a wee bit more, just so we really understand more about you? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, that would be
Thank
great.
you, sir.
I've been preparing for this and I have my history and I would love to go through it. This is my first opportunity to really share my story. So I'm actually anxious and looking forward to do it.
Oh, you'll do fine. You're a natural, as I said. You're very passionate.
Thank you. Well, I really hope that the passion comes through.
Yeah,
I do.
brilliant.
All right, great. So I was born in 1977. That makes me 47 years old. I dealt with anxiety through childhood. I was always smaller and lighter than everyone else. So I always felt less than. I always felt insignificant. I got picked on a lot. They used to knock my books down. I got beat up and all those kind of things. During this time, I was eating a typical standard American diet. The acronym is SAD for that. That was whatever the SAD was for the 80s. That's what I was eating. And somewhere between 8 and 12, I was a victim to multiple predators. And then when I was 13, 1990, I had my first treatment. It was for anger management. And it was for things like kicking holes in walls, yelling and screaming, ruining holidays. I just couldn't control myself. My anger was terrible. And during this time, I wasn't able to keep friends. I always had this terrible feeling that I didn't fit in. I was always different than everyone else. Never knew what that was. Very angry and depressed. Lots of feelings of despair. And I would do things like snoozing my alarm clock, and I would just bash the alarm clock. And I don't know how many alarm clocks I broke into pieces like that. One time I punched a hole in a door, and a hollow door. My arm goes through the door. Now I have to pull it out. I got all huge shards of wood in my arm. It was terrible. And then, of course, I had to replace the door too, which was no fun.
Yeah.
And when these things would happen, I would get angry, switch would go off, and I could see myself punching the door, but I was never able to intervene to stop myself. And then it was almost like I was a witness watching somebody else do that. As I got older, I used to sneak out my window all the time, just making terrible decisions. When it was time to drive, we had a car parked in the driveway with no registration, and I would sneak out in the middle of the night, sometimes in the middle of broad daylight, and I'm driving an unregistered car with no plates and no license. I didn't really know how stupid that was. These are the kind of stupid things that I did. And then when I was 16, I smoked pot for the first time. And when I did that, it was like, wow, I feel normal. I'm not really sure what normal is, but I think this is normal. I felt good from that. So from 16 to 18, I was in high school. I was smoking pot here and there. 1995, I graduated high school at 18. And shortly after, I wanted to get out of my house. I was miserable and depressed. And I always felt like if I could just get out of the house and be somewhere else, that I would leave all my troubles behind. So in my typical fashion, it was a violent thing that I did. I rented a U-Haul and I just started pulling the stuff out of my room. And I didn't even say goodbye. I packed a truck and I left. It was terrible. And Mom and Dad, I'm so sorry for the things I did. It was around this time that I started a vegetarian diet. I had terrible acne and I took an antibiotic called ampicillin to treat it. And I built up a tolerance to that very quickly. And the acne would come back. So I would just take more and more ampicillin. I don't even remember how I used to take like a handful of pills. I still wonder if that affected now that we know about the microbiome and my gut and everything and how it's connected to the brain, how much I messed up my gut doing that. And a friend's mom, she said, let's talk about your diet. What are you eating? This is the first time I had ever experienced this. And she's like, is there dairy? I said, well, I'm trying to gain weight. I don't want to be so skinny. I was drinking a ton of milk. So she said, try cutting out the milk, see what happens. I cut out the milk, my acne improved. And then she gave me the book, A Diet for a New America. And I read that and I was inspired to become a vegetarian. I kept eating dairy, but I wasn't drinking milk. And I ate fish and I had lots of tofu and so different kinds of soy products, going after like the meat replacement things, like burgers and whatever, and a lot of nuts and seeds. So at this point, I'm vegetarian. And I'm smoking a lot. I'm smoking a lot of pot because it's making me feel normal, but I can't control it and it's affecting me.
Yeah.
So I decided to go for treatment and I had a friend take me to a couple treatment centers in the area. And unfortunately at that time, this was probably, 96, 97, there was just nobody there to help. And I would go to these places and they basically, what I heard was, are you serious? Like, you're here for pot? Go smoke a joint. Get out of here. What's wrong with you? They want somebody sticking a needle in their arm that they can detox for a couple of days. So I'm raising my hand. I'm saying, I have a problem. I need help. Somebody help me. And there's nobody there to help me. And it makes you feel disillusioned, but also part of me is hearing, well, maybe I don't have a problem. It's just pot. Maybe it's not a big deal. So I continue to smoke, but it's a problem. I'm not controlling myself very well. So I just floundered for a couple of years. I was living on my own, barely surviving. I ended up making a lot of poor decisions. That's how I ended up with a lot of tattoos. Like, I'd be angry and want to just change something about my appearance or myself. I'm going to go get a tattoo today. I'm just going to pick something on the wall. So I had like a heart with a sword through it. It maybe was a girl that broke up with me. I covered that, didn't like it. And then I added the extra stuff to just terrible decision making. It was terrible. So at 25 in 2002 was my first real treatment. It was an IOP, or an intensive outpatient treatment. It was 6 months. I think we started out 5 days a week and it was maybe 5 hours. I think it trailed off to like 3 days a week for 3 hours because I thought smoking pot was my issue and I'm going to go to this treatment. I'm going to give up the pot because I needed help with that. So I did that and I went 6 months without any pot, but I think I probably felt worse then than I did before. And I was depressed and irritable. And so I realized the way they explained it to me was like, you got these mountains of trouble. And so you got over the pot mountain, but now it's like, I got this big giant mountain there on the other side of it that I didn't know was there. So this is when I started with medication and therapy and SSRIs, and I took Prozac and Paxil, and those are the absolute worst for me. But I continued to just flounder for a couple of years. I saw, I don't know how many different psychiatrists, different therapists, all the different medications I took, Remron, Effexor, Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin was good because it helped me quit smoking. I was doing nicotine and I would smoke and I'd chewing tobacco. And just to give an example of how much of a junkie I am, there were times where I'd throw a patch on my arm and you can get a buzz off a patch initially, but that goes away. And I'd have a patch on my arm and I would put a chew in my mouth and then I'd also be smoking a cigarette at the same time. And that's how much of a junkie I am. It's crazy. So let's see. During the next few years, great deal of despair in my life, just not doing well, and times that I wished that I could be dead, but I didn't want to kill myself. If I ever really thought about the process, like, well, how would I do it, and what would it be like? How would it affect those? As soon as I had those thoughts, it's not something I want to do. But I just had this overwhelming feeling of wanting to be dead. And when I got in very desperate moments, I had a couple things that I clung to. And one of them was my two animals. I had a beagle named Falcor, and I had a cat named Aspen who was a Siamese snowshoe. He was a very big cat. He was almost the size of the beagle. And they were great. They were like two brothers, and they would cuddle. I have tons of pictures of them cuddling and sleeping. They would sleep under the blanket with me. And because I was a vegetarian and I didn't know any better, I was kind of feeding my dog sort of a vegetarian diet, which I would never do that now. And he had terrible, terrible skin issues. What do you know? Just like me, he always had yeast in his ears and stuff going on in between his paws. He would have to chew at. I had medicine I put on him, drops in his ears, and I'd always think like, if I off myself, who's going to take care of my animals? Nobody's going to be able to take care of them like I can. And they helped hold me together during that time. And then the other thing was, when I share this, people think this is the corniest thing, but it's the New York Giants. Football, New York Giants. I've been a Giants fan since I was a kid. And to this day, I'm like heavily just into them. And the reason I was on Twitter to begin with was to follow the beat writers. And I can recall a time where it was like maybe August or September and the season's about to kick up and it's after 04. They've got Eli Manning. It's like, we got a quarterback. We have a coach. They might end up being good. I'll be damned if I'm going to off myself and I'm going to miss a good season or a Super Bowl. I'm not going to miss a Super Bowl. So it held me together. It got me out of those dark times. And then cool enough is a couple years later, the 07 season, they won the Super Bowl. And then the 2011 season, they won a Super Bowl, and I was super involved in those seasons, like hugely. The second one, my wife and I, we went to the stadium for the celebration, and it was always like this redemption for me that, see, if I off myself, I would have missed all of that. I would have missed all of it. And you just gotta, whatever it is that can hold you together in those dark times, you gotta find it and you gotta cling to it. So around this time, I always hate what I see in the mirror. I look at myself and it makes me angry to see myself. I don't like what I see. So I constantly want to change my appearance. I talked about the tattoos, and those that have known me for a while, they know that I've had short hair with buzz cuts. I've had long hair past my shoulders. I've had mohawks. I've even had a mohawk, a blue mohawk. I think I did it for a Giants game and then I kept it. All the different facial hair. I've had like the big long beard. I've had chops. I had the goatee. I had the long pointy, like just any way that I could change or cover or anything, I would do that. So at age of 28 or 2005, at this point, I was heavily involved in AA. I was in a home group. I had a sponsor. I had even had sponsees, and me and a couple of guys my age, we had our own little group that we set up. We would do midnight meetings that were down by the beach. It was really cool. I was still eating a vegetarian, like the sad diet, but vegetarian with no meat. But I was miserable and I was depressed, and I was not smoking pot, but I was taking meds. I was on Wellbutrin and Effexor, and they didn't. I don't know. They were okay. They maybe took the edge off, but they didn't really do much for me. Maybe they worked somewhat for some of the time, but they didn't really work. And it was how many consecutive weekends in a row that I woke up and I was telling my sponsor that I just wished that I were dead. And he said, okay, I'm taking you someplace. So I went back to a hospital. I did my second IOP. At this point, I got the dual diagnosis. It was the substance abuse and bipolar 2 mix. And that's when they put in Lamictal for me. So I was already taking Wellbutrin and Effexor. They added Lamictal. I started to feel better. I thought, hey, maybe this is what I'm missing. Maybe I need Lamictal to feel better. I always thought how we're taught about the chemical imbalance, and I thought this is what I needed. I didn't know at the time that I didn't realize that Lamictal is an anti-seizure drug and that marijuana is also used to treat seizures. And it just turns out that the strains of pot that I really like or worked for me the best were the ones that they use for seizures. But I didn't connect it then. So I was on those meds for a while. Lamictal worked pretty well for me. I was doing okay. For what I knew then, I was doing pretty well. I met my wife in 06. I was 30 years old. I bought my first house and I was doing really well. It was, finally not living on my own, having my wife, I said she's got the patience of an angel, but she's just like so steady. Whatever her energy, it's got a very high energy level, and she just has it every day in and out. So that was a great level of stability for me. So I wanted to come off some of my meds. I wanted to really just be on just Lamictal and see how it went. Because Effexor, Wellbutrin, all the side effects are awful. And I tell you, getting off Effexor was one of the worst things I've ever experienced. I get brain zaps, and I had to titrate so slowly, and I was literally breaking little pieces off the pill to change the dose over the period of time. So I'm going to skip ahead to when I was 35, 2011. I had been off meds for a while, doing okay. If you ask people around me, they would say I was fine, but inside I was not okay. And I ended up taking Wellbutrin again for a short time. And around this time was when I was doing some heavy weightlifting. I started doing the Jim Wendler 531. Exercise has always been a huge part of my story, but it becomes relevant here for the diet aspect of it because I started doing a carb backloading plan. So you would fast for most of the day, have maybe a protein shake, go do a heavy lift, and then have a protein after. And then later on at night, have your dinner and you consume all your carbs late at night. And the experience is you wake up the next day and you're like, you get jacked from it. Like you're all filled up with glycogen. I didn't know that it's what it was at the time, but you eat your carbs, you drink a bunch of water, you wake up and you just feel awesome. And what I didn't realize is that I was fasting and I was eating lower carb than usual because I'm cramming my carbs in at night. And I loved it because I'm eating all my favorite carbs. I'm eating potato chips and ice cream and apple fritters. How about a warm apple fritter with ice cream on it? Things like that. At like 11 o'clock at night. I was loving it. It was great. I loved it. But at the time, I'm still eating the vegetarian diet, and I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to make that work the best I can. So a lot of hemp and chia seeds and those green powders, but I still have dairy. I still have eggs. Still have coconut oil. This is when I started drinking the bulletproof coffee. So I'd have big, huge thing of coffee I would drink all day long, or I would fast. But the bulletproof coffee with the butter and the coconut oil. But just always feeling like something's missing. Can't dial in this vegetarian diet. I can't find the right green powder. Like I'm always looking for the solution. I can't find the right thing. So around 2013 or so, I read a book by Brandon Brazier, who's a long distance athlete. He's got the Vega brand and he's a raw vegan. And he's running like ultra marathons on not just a vegan diet, but raw. So I'm like, oh, that's what I'm missing. I'm cooking everything. I'm going to stop cooking my food. Let's try this next. And my wife she's there every step of the way because she's helping prepare the food and she's doing the diet with me. So I'm doing this raw vegan diet now. I'm coming up on 20 years of vegetarian, and then I was vegan before this, and then I went to the raw vegan thing. But it didn't work. My health declined. Maybe I felt good at first, probably because I was doing something for myself. That tends to happen. Skin issues, and now I'm trying to lift heavily, and I don't have the same gusto in the gym that I used to have. So 2015, I add meat back in, and it was a lot of fun. I reached out to all my friends. I said, hey, I'm eating meat again. What do you suggest? And they gave me all these delis and all the places to go to. And for like the next 6 months or a year, I went to all these places and I tried all these, my friends' favorite sandwiches. And it was great. I started feeling better right away from that. Around the same time, I started wearing special contacts. I wear contacts and glasses because I have keratoconus, and the contacts are like a bowl. You fill them with saline, you put them on your eye, and they hold the saline all day. But I would always have issues with fogging, and I'd have to take them out and clean them multiple times a day. This becomes more relevant when I talk about changing my diet. I was lifting very heavy, and my two main lifts were the bench and the deadlift. And so I'll say that I have a very difficult time taking credit. I don't like saying things that feel like they're bragging, but when I really apply myself and I put a lot of effort into things and then I reach a goal, I do feel good sharing. So I'm going to share that at my strongest, I was only 167 pounds, but I was deadlifting 395.
Oh.
So when you do the math, it's 2.4 times my body weight. And I always round that up and say I'm pulling 2.5 times my body weight. It's not elite. I'm not going to go win a competition, but when it comes to lifting, like that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time. It took me years to get there. And what I really wanted, I wanted 4 plates. I wanted to have 4 plates on either side of the bar. And that makes a 405. So I was 10 pounds away with my 5-3-1 plan. Everything is mapped out. I was going to be in there in a couple of months. My daughter Samantha was born in August of 2016. And right away, it's like, I can't train like I used to because I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you have a kid, when you have a baby. So right away, that kind of fell off. But then, unfortunately, I fell off a ladder. I dislocated my hand and shattered the end of my wrist. And it was so bad that they were considering fusing my hand to my wrist so I wouldn't even be able to move. I don't know if you guys are able to even see that I have a scar, but they put a plate and screws in, and then a year later I had to get the plate and screws taken out.
Right.
So that was kind of the end of my deadlift dream, unfortunately. It took me a long time to give up my infatuation with the barbell, and that's going to become relevant later on in the story too.
Yeah.
So around this time after Samantha was born, money's tight. I'm mowing lawns to make ends meet. I still do that today. So we were eating the cheapest we could. I was eating pasta every day. Well, who doesn't love pasta? It was great. I loved it. It's the cheapest thing I could find. I was making my own sourdough. I ended up getting very good at that. We would make 2 loaves on Sunday. One of them was just for us to eat hot out of the oven, dip it in oil and spices. And the other loaf was to eat throughout the week. I would take it to work. But I had terrible, terrible skin issues. I had eczema, and I'd go to the dermatologist, and you know how it is. They're like, well, you got eczema, here, take this steroid. And I'd say, but doc, what is it? Where does it come from? Why is it happening? How do I stop it? Because the cream doesn't really do much for me. My contacts, terrible. Like every 30 minutes, I got to take them out and clean them, put them back in. I refer to it as changing them. I'm using the same lenses, but I got to change them every 30 minutes. It's like ridiculous. So for contrast today on the HFBO, I'm going 12, 14, 16 hours. I put them in first thing in the morning. I'm going 16 hours. I don't have a single issue with them.
Wow.
But when I eat the wheat, especially wheat is my biggest offender, my eyes, they get all foggy. At around this time, I ballooned up to 190 pounds. So I'm about 145 today. I said when I was deadlifting at my strongest, I was 167. So 20 pounds heavier than I am now. At one point, I was 185. So even another 20 pounds on top of that when I was really heavy into the full body weightlifting. But that's too heavy for me. At 185 didn't look good on me. But this was 190 after 2 years of not working out, after sitting around and eating pasta. And like I was active. I'm always active. I'm mowing lawns. I'm doing landscaping. But the 190 was not good on me. And I have a video up on the YouTube. It's through the years. It shows pictures of Samantha and I. It's a quick short. And you'll see where we're making our loaves of bread because she used to make her little baby one and I make mine. But you could see that I'm all puffy in the face. And I would refer to myself as being fat. My wife would say, you can't say that because you're going to offend somebody. But for me, I was fat. Like I had this big tire. It was in the way when I'm trying to tie my shoes. For me, that was fat. And it was not a good place to be. So now I am, let's see, we fast forward 2 years. I'm 42. It's 2019. Actually, the math might be off on that. Whatever. I was 42. Sam was about 2.5. And I was just feeling terrible. Just the skin issues, the contacts, and no reason to be depressed. No reason to be angry. I've got a baby. Work is going well. Everything was great, but just miserable and depressed, and had that feeling like I need a way out. Do I really want to go back and take meds again? Well, what are my choices? I've taken all the meds out there. I know that I can take a pill and it's going to help a little bit. And then 6 months later, I'm going to want to get off of it because of the side effects. Do I really want to do that? And so what I thought was, well, let me lose a little bit of weight. Let me start working out again because I know it's going to make me feel better. And I remember the carb backloading plan that I did, and that the little bit of fasting or the not eating as many meals, I guess, because I wasn't really fasting yet. And I also remembered during that time that I would use MyFitnessPal to track my calories and my carbs to try to keep my carbs down. So I started doing that. I lowered my carbs. I lost 20 pounds almost like right away. I mean, if you're eating pasta and bread every day and you cut that out, it's pretty easy to lose weight pretty quickly, right? So I lost 20 pounds right away, and I started feeling better right away. And I distinctly remember I was big into podcasts at the time. That's why I'm thrilled to be a guest on a podcast because I was listening to them back in 19 when people weren't doing video. Everything was just recorded.
Yeah.
So I heard Vinny Tortorich. He is the no sugars, no grains guy, NSNG. And he was on Adam and Dr. Drew, and he said something about a carnivore diet where people eat just meat. He was probably talking about Sean Baker, but I don't know, because that might have been around the time that Baker was on Joe Rogan. But I'm like, really? You can eat? Like, how do you do that? It seemed like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And the reaction I had then is the reaction I get from people now when I tell them, like, how do you eat meat? Like, I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, we need plants, don't we? Like, we need vegetables for vitamins and minerals. But even if you could eat meat and survive, how can anybody tolerate that? I'm picturing like, yeah, the same piece of meat every day. That's what you have. That's what I was picturing in my mind. How could anybody do that? So ridiculous. But the thought, it stuck in my mind because as I ate less plants and more meat, I wasn't thinking of it as plants versus meat at the time, but as I ate more meat, I felt better and better. And that thought always stuck in my mind. So I was probably eating paleo at the time. It was a lot of meat. If I was on the road mowing lawns, I'm having eggs and jerky, and then I'm having avocado and meat and like low carb vegetables like parsnips, turnips, carrots, things like that. Keep eating more meat, less vegetables, lowering my carbs, feeling better and better. And thinking about the carnivore thing I heard, this crazy idea. And I'm a crazy I'm a crazy guy. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try it. Let me just try eating just meat and see what happens. And it was great. I felt great. But it wasn't enough. I ended up I had to experiment, and then I had to add fat. There were days where like I didn't have energy and I was still doing dairy, so I'd add butter in, and so that takes us up to 2020. I'm 44. It's about a year after I changed my diet, and we got COVID. It was the OG COVID, the original real deal COVID, where we lost our taste and smell.
Yeah.
And my poor wife, she lost her taste and smell much longer than I did. I lost it for 11 days, and it was 11 days of like misery. It's so, especially I got a daughter with a diaper. Like, does she need her diaper changed? I can't tell. We're going to have to go open it up and look. And just not being able to smell your environment and not be able to taste any food was miserable. So during that time, it's very easy to lose track of time when you're sick like that. I ate some leftovers that were older than I realized, and I got terribly sick. I got a really bad case of food poisoning. And so I had C. diff, I had Campylobacter, and I had Salmonella all at the same time.
Wow.
And the reason I mention this is because it was around that time that my body changed, and I believe that's when I started having electrolyte issues that I still to this day have not completely figured out. I'm going to talk about B minerals being a key component in that. But so that's why I'm mentioning the COVID and the sickness. So now it's COVID, and now we start working from home, which has been a blessing. It's been the greatest thing ever. And I was already putting together a home gym. And now that I'm home, I'm lifting more. I'm probably lifting too much, and mostly barbell. I'm bench pressing, I'm deadlifting, the things I love to do. I was proud of myself that after my wrist, I got my deadlift back up to 300. I was trying to get to 315, but it hurt. It wasn't the same as before, and it wasn't worth it. I was feeling beat up, and I would take a break, or I'd take a week off, and it would devastate me to take a week off because I was like Monday and Friday, I'm doing my lifts, and to take a week off was hard. It was not easy to do, but I wouldn't heal up. I still did not feel good. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to stop lifting until I feel better. And it was a good 3 or 4 weeks, and I get the pain in my elbows and my shoulders and my wrists, my hip. I had to have cortisone shots in my hip years ago. So during this time, I start feeling really good. I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm eating meat. I'm already at this point going to the butcher, getting beef fat trim. So I'm kind of what I do now. I'm eating beef fat and meat. Looking back now, I know that I was in ketosis, but at the time I didn't know what ketosis was or ketones. I had no idea. I just knew that I felt like so good that if you could put that in a pill, I would just take that every day. I just felt amazing. And then once I start lifting again, my appetite gets stimulated. I'm eating more meat. All of a sudden the irritability is coming back. And one of the problems I can have with lifting too heavy is that even long before I change my diet is that I'll have this like central nervous system effect on me. Like it's too much. And the day after a heavy lift, when I first started 531, those first couple of weeks, I would just be really irritable and angry when I lift too heavy. So I didn't know about the ketosis. I just knew that when my appetite wasn't stimulated and I ate less, I felt better. So I started experimenting with calorie restriction, but I'm losing weight. I'm getting skinny. People are telling me I look sickly. I'm 145 now. I was 130 at my lowest. I did not look good. I looked like there was something wrong with me. And so it was around this time that I was doing some research on it. And that's when I found that they used the ketogenic diet for epilepsy. And that's when I had a light bulb, and it was ketogenic diet, Lamictal, and certain strains of marijuana are all what work for me. And they're all being treated for epilepsy. So I didn't know the science involved, didn't really care. I just knew there was this connection. So that's when I started to pursue the ketogenic thing. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it how they do it for epilepsy. And that's where the 90-10 comes in, because these kids are treatment resistant. They've already had 3 different medications and they've had brain stimulation and this and that. And this is the diet that they use. So that's what I started to pursue then. But it wasn't easy. And I had a very little acceptance that this is the way I needed to eat. So I kept falling off and I kept failing. Or sometimes I would just be feeling really good and be like, all right, I'm going to try to add something back. Let me just eat a pile of meat, or let me add something back in. And because of that addict in me, I could end up, I eat some carbs. The fireworks go off in my head. And then I'm eating carbs for, weeks or months and falling off that way. So we were at, let's see, I was 44, 2020. It's only a couple years ago. I was trying to deal with my electrolyte issues. I was following Cole Robinson, the snake diet. He's got his snake juice. So I got heavily into that, making my own electrolytes, trying every different brand of electrolytes out there, trying to figure out how to make all this work for me. There's a good chance for me to shout out some people that were instrumental in this process besides Cole. Dr. Tro, I was able to get TGMs from him, the continuous glucose monitors. The time I got them, I had my stuff figured out that I didn't really need them, but I had tried so hard in the beginning to get them that I wore them for a couple times. This is when I first started hearing Chris Palmer, who is one of my all-time favorite podcast listens. I just love the man. I feel like I've listened to him so much that he's like a friend. And there was Amber O'Hearn. She's the Keto AF. And she was the first person I heard talking about the fat part. She says, eat animals mostly fat. I'm like, oh, that's me. That's what I do. So I love listening to her. And then there was Simone Huggins too. She works with Dave Feldman. And when you hear her talk, at least back in the day, she did better on high fat. I don't hear anybody talking about this. And finally, I kind of fit in with some people. And I like that Simone would do experiments on herself. And she did like the liver experiment, and she would talk about not being able to find satiety when she eats. And that's me. I don't have an off switch. I just eat and eat and eat. So she would sit with a pile of fat, eat that until she felt satiated. Then she would eat her protein. And then she would weigh after to figure out how much she ate. So I started doing things like that. And to this day, I still eat my fat first. I do it because it's what works best, but it's because of Simone that I do that. And of course, there's Sean Baker. I mean, who in this community doesn't know Sean Baker? So whenever somebody told me like, well, you need plants or you need vegetables, I'd be like, look at this guy. He's crushing world records on the concept too. All he eats is steak. So that's who I pointed to. And he was inspiration. If he could do it, I know I can do it. You also have Paul Saladino. I was following him back when he was still a carnivore, not the carnivore-ish thing he does now. But he was a big part of my story. I spent a lot of time listening to his podcast, and he's the reason that I started eating organs, and I still eat organs to this day. Anthony Chafee was a big one. I love his line that plants are trying to kill you. I do use that on people at times. And then there's Dave Champion. Dave Champion says that ketosis is our natural state. He also coined the term glucosis for people that burn sugar versus fat. And then you've got Caroline Allen. She's the co-CEO of Beam. I started hearing about Beam in November, and I was still having trouble. I wrote the company. She gave me a half hour of her time. We did a video chat. She recommended that I go get a scan done that I'm actually going to get tomorrow to try to figure out what's going on with my minerals. And then I got to mention Sean O'Mara, because he's the reason that I started sprinting a year ago. Anybody who doesn't know Sean O'Malley should go check him out because sprinting is major for the body. So I'm going to skip ahead to, let's see where we're at. I was 45 in September of 2021. I was on again, off again with the diet. I wasn't committed to it. I wasn't doing it right. And a Redditor reached out to me and said, have you ever heard of borderline personality disorder, or DBT? It's dialectical behavioral therapy. I had done CBT before. I never heard of DBT. Yeah. So I look into it and I check out the DSM for borderline. I'm like, well, yeah, I fit pretty neatly in there, but I don't fit in any one box, which is pretty common for people with psychiatric illnesses, right? I'm a little bipolar. I'm a little schizo. I don't have the voices. I'm a little borderline, but it's interesting. I look into DBT and I see that it's workbooks and homework. It's right up my alley. I'm like, this is great. This is made for me. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love the reflection. I love having homework. It keeps me accountable. So I found that. I did DBT for a year, but during that time, I was still just, Samantha was just starting to experience a lot of troubles. I was not great. Things were not great. So I'm like, we got to do something. I'm not capable of being a competent father. I can't keep my diet together. Take Lamictal again. So I did. I took Lamictal for a year. That was from March of 22 until 23. So it's a year ago now since I've been off the Lamictal. Once I stopped it in March, I was still kind of floundering. I was using marijuana here and there just to try to as medicine, not as recreational whatsoever. But it's just, for me, that's not a great way to live. I don't want to be doing that. So when Samantha went back to school in the fall, I'm now 46. I decided it's time for me to commit at least to beef only, because I had been eating all these other things, and I've proven time and time again that certain things are going to rack me in certain ways. And I can predict if I have cocoa, I'm going to get a certain skin issue on a certain part of my body. Right. And even when it comes to dairy, if I have butter, I get zits here. If I have cheese, I'm going to probably get zits here. And I know what's going to happen to me. So I'm like, this is stupid. I'm just going to let's dig my heels in. She's back to school. Summer's over. Beef only. And I had some pretty good stretches there. I had some longer fast mixed in. I love fasting. Sometimes I do 72s. So my longest has been almost 6 days. So I was mixing some fasting in the fall. And this is where I started to realize that I always have these sayings and these quotes that I refer to. And one of them as an addict is, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So I don't know if many people can relate to that, but the ones that can, it makes sense. If it's worth doing, yeah, it's worth overdoing. But that changed for me recently to, if I can't overdo it, I don't even want to do it at all. So the idea of an ounce of potato chips or just a scoop of ice cream is worthless to me. I want the whole bag of chips. I want the whole container of ice cream. And just like an alcoholic doesn't want or can't have that one drink, I don't want or can't have that one little thing. Yeah. So it helped me start to feel a little more solidified in my path, a little more confident. And I would think, well, no, if I can't overdo it, I just don't want to do it. So I'm going to stay away. During the fall, around this time of 23, I'm a little more active on Reddit, and I'm meeting people around the world. It's great. There's somebody in Australia, there's somebody in Canada, and they're doing similar things to me. And it's the camaraderie it was amazing. It felt so great to have other people to talk to. But then in March, that's when I met Tim. Tim hit me up on Reddit. And so these other people that I met, they're in other countries. They're not married with kids like me. And they almost feel like a fantasy person. Yeah. Because I'm only talking to them on Reddit. But then I meet Tim, and he's similar in age. He's got 2 young girls. He lives close to me. He's close enough that we could take a drive. And it's like a real friend. And it was different than anything I experienced before. And we become really close, really fast. We're talking every day, all day on WhatsApp, and we're talking on the phone. And now Tim is in the beginning of this journey. I'm not going to tell too much of his story, but he's just now realizing in adult life that he's got issues and he needs help. And here I am. I've been suffering for 30 years. I've had 20 some years of treatment. And so you would think because of that I'm the one helping him. But in reality, he's helping me way more than he could ever know. He helps me so much. And so just in a simple way of, I'm accountable to him. And I say I'm going to do something, I do it because I'm doing it for him. I'm showing him how I do things. he's got me into Discord, and we have a Discord, just him and I, where we share our ketone numbers, our bloods, we share our weights, we share our food. We have an accountability thing in there. So I'll say, tomorrow, this is 1, 2, 3 things I want to get done. And because I put them in there, now I'm like a determined person. I'm going to get them done. So this is what Tim has done for me. And I've been doing like the 30 days of the beef only. I did a 30 days of beef only through the holiday season, but I was still eating a lot of meat and I was still irritable. I was still depressed. I was not great. I was okay. I was probably like at a 6 or a 7, which is, it's pretty good. And somebody like Tim, who's at a 3, he would take a 6 or a 7 any day. But for me, it's not good enough. So I heard Chris Palmer on a different podcast, and it was the first time I heard him give any details. And he says, if one of his patients wants to do diet, he wants a 3-month commitment. And within that 3 months, he wants 2 months of ketones of 1.5 or higher.
Right.
And I was so thankful that he said that, because I never got those details. I said, okay, this is great. I'm going to do 30 days of 1.5 or higher. And then when I'm done, I'm going to do another 30, and then I'll have the 2 months that he recommends. So I had already started that around the time I was talking to Tim, but Tim coming along really just helped push me along. And so I did 25 days. My ketones were 1.5 or higher. And this was the best now that I've ever felt. And during this time, I'm thinking, if there's Tim out there and these other people out there and there's communities like so helpful, and maybe I should get on social media. Maybe I'd love to have my own YouTube channel. This is when I had the idea for my daughter. I talked to Samantha. She's always wanted to be on YouTube. So I start talking to her. Of course, she's all gung-ho. She wants to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
So right away, I'm thinking, well, I gotta have a handle, and it would be great if I had a logo. So I'm feeling the best I ever had. My brain is working so well. I start coming up with all these ideas. I have the handle. I create all my socials. I don't do anything with them, but they're there. I started them all.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I need a logo. I want it to be fire. Now, I'm not an artsy guy. I'm not artistic. But one day I'm feeling so good. I grab a clipboard and a pad or whatever, and I go out, sit out in the sun in the backyard, and I'm like drawing like little ideas, which is kind of what this became. But that's not really like me to do that. That just shows how good I was feeling.
Yeah.
And that's when I came up with all this. But it started with Tim. And then, so I did like the 25 days. I don't remember. I ate something I shouldn't have. It messed me up. I ruined my streak. Whatever. I get over it and move on. And then I meet Matt. And now Matt is not like Tim in the way that married with kids. He's 21. He's in college. But Matt has gotten to the beef only, just like me, through self-experimentation. And we had an hour phone call after we started. He hit me up on Reddit because he saw one of my posts. And we talked on the phone, and I was literally almost in tears the whole time to hear that there is somebody exactly like me.
Yeah.
Now, his focus is not the high fat like mine is. He focuses on the low protein, which kind of is the same thing, but it's a different focus, and he keeps his calories down. But he's gotten to the same place through the same experimentation. And I think it was a Thursday, just like 2 weeks ago. It was a Thursday that we had the conversation. And that day I was like, well, look, if there's Matt out there, like if there's more people like us, like I got to get them out of the woodwork. I'm going to do something. I don't know what it is. So I think that day was when I did my long introduction post on Reddit, and Travis posted it for me on Twitter. Travis is the mod from that Reddit group. People out there know Travis. He's got a lot of followers. Now, I didn't really know like any really much about social media, but all of a sudden it's like I got all these people are contacting me and they're responding in the Reddit thread. So I'm like, all right, well, here's my chance. I got to make a video. I didn't know what to do. I made my first. So I probably spoke to Matt on Wednesday. I did the Reddit thing on Thursday. And then Friday, I recorded my first video. And it was basically a narration of that introduction. Put it up on YouTube. Travis posted. It's like, it's got all this attention. I'm like, wow, this is it. All right, I got a channel. I guess this is a dream come true. I guess I'm doing this thing. So then the next day was when I filmed my first video with Samantha, and we're in the car. For anybody who's seen this, we're in the car and she's behind me and she puts on the Frozen glasses. And I didn't know she was doing this, but she's doing her dance and she's all cute. And when I saw it, I was just cracking up. I'm like, man, I know how cute she is, but to see her doing that, it was just so great. So I'm like, all right, well, here's my idea. This is going to be the theme for the show. It's going to be family friendly. It's going to be centered around her. People are going to eat this up. They're going to love her. So that original video that I did was kind of dark. And so I took that down because it doesn't really fit the theme of what the show is going to be. So Matt, I mean, he really helped spark me. That's what started this whole thing. And that's when I came up with I don't know if we can see it here, the high fat beef only. And this is to solidify what I'm doing, to solidify my path. Because you got the carnivore community out there, and some of them are able to eat all different kinds of things from all different kind of animals.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the lion group, and lion diet is ruminant meat, salt water. They eat mostly beef, but a lot of them are doing it because they have to. They have autoimmune. They don't want to do it, but they're not focused on the fats. I don't really fit anywhere. So now I'm like, I want my own thing. I want to get people like Matt. I want my own group of people. I want us to come together, but I also want to provide this as an option for people, that this is something out there that you could try that might work for you. You might be already close to this. I've spoken to people already that were like, I already do 80%, but I still eat plants. Maybe I'll just cut it out and try the beef. So just to have an option out there for people to try. And people will say to me, well, the way you eat is so strict or so restrictive. And I have an answer for that. I eat this way because I want to. I choose what I eat. I can eat whatever I want. I may have to deal with some consequences, but I'm eating how I want. I'm not doing this because I have to.
Yeah.
And I choose it because it's what works best for me. And I'm going to steal lines from Brett, who was just on. He talks about, if you want to know what's restrictive, the chronic depressed state that I lived in for 30 years, that's restrictive. That restricts me from being the person I want to be, from being a competent dad, from doing the things I want to do. And high fat beef only, it's not strict. It's not restrictive. It's liberating. It allows me to thrive. And I used to look at others who could eat items that I can't, and I would consider them lucky. Well, regular carnivores, you guys can eat the dairy and the chicken and the pork. You're so lucky. I don't look at it that way anymore. I consider myself the lucky one because I found what works for me. I have my path, and I'm ready to stick to it.
Firstly, I just need to thank you so much for sharing and being so honest with us, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's obviously been quite a difficult journey. There's been a lot of kind of ups and downs, certainly a lot of downs where you're thinking, how am I going to get out of this? So I want to thank you, and and I think that you should be very proud of how honest you are and how vulnerable you've made yourself to be able to share your message. But also that you've got the mental kind of fortitude to go, I want to be better. I want to be the best example as I can for my daughter, and I want to be the best husband that I can for my wife. Mm-hmm. That's something that you really, really, really should be proud of, because there's not a lot of people that can admit where their shortcomings are, and there's certainly not a lot of people that can then look and change their diet, change everything about their life to actually try to battle that. Because listen, a lot of people, when they're diagnosed with something, could use it as an excuse to allow behaviours to continue. If people are diagnosed with certain mental health problems, they just go, well, this is what it is then, and I can't help this. But you've never let a label, you've never let anything that's happened to you define you. You've continuously tried to grow, and I think that's something that I take my hat off to you. I really admire you for that. And, it's just, you should be proud of yourself. And I know it's hard for you to take praise, and maybe that can stem back from maybe not the best interactions socially from growing up, and it has an effect. Mm-hmm. It's trauma, it certainly is. But from a man looking across and seeing a man that's trying to be the best husband he can be and be the best father he can be, you've got a lot to be proud of, mate. You really, really do. And I think you deserve to be a wee bit kinder sometimes to yourself, because you're doing a great job. You really are, mate.
Thank you. You're not the first one to say that. My wife will say the same thing to me. It is hard to accept credit, but it's especially when it's for things that come easily to me. Yeah. So I'm putting myself out there, but it's what I do, or I'm trying to be the best that I can, and I'm trying to do things for myself. It's what I do. It comes easy. So I feel like it's hard to take credit for. It's the things like the deadlifting that I mentioned, where I'm putting a lot of effort and I'm trying really hard. Yeah. The same thing applies to the college classes that I'm taking, and I get an A, and everybody's like, "Oh, you did so well." Like, it was easy. I didn't really have to try. But it's it was the algebra class where I worked my tail off. Yeah. And I was super proud of that final exam because I put the effort and I got the 100. I got every single question right because I tried hard. So it is difficult to accept the credit. But hearing you say that to me, it does make me feel very proud. And it's a good chance for me just to say thank you again for allowing me a platform to share my story and to get it out there to people so that people can hear it.
And you deserve a platform to share this, because your journey and your story is inspiring. And what we're going to speak about next as well, I think, is something that could also be even more helpful. I think adults being helped through what you're doing is very, very important. I think it's going to help a lot of people. But there's also another unique element to your life, Stephen, and it's because you have a daughter who, from a young age, was diagnosed with ADHD and OCD. Now, Samantha, she is 7 years old. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if you don't mind, take me back to obviously having Samantha, because you would have had Samantha at 40. Is that correct? Were you 40 years old?
That's correct. Yes.
Wow. So, was she planned? Was it a shock? What happened? It's a good age.
Oh no, it was. Yeah, it was planned. Yeah,
amazing.
My wife and I, we met late, and then we got married, and we were together for a while, and it took a while before we did it.
Amazing. Now, see, when you said you were 47, I was shocked, by the way, because you look good for your age. I need to give you that. You look very good for your age.
Thank you.
I take it you might get that sometimes.
It's just like in the last 10 days that I'm on social media that people are saying that to me. I don't really hear that.
Well, you know what? It goes to show what looking after your body and it goes to show it helps you age. You've aged very well, and it's fair play. You've got, that's amazing. So with Samantha then, at what age would you say that maybe symptoms or certain behaviours started to prop up that was somewhat noticeable for you guys?
So I felt like, because I'm an addict and I've been around so many addicts and so many treatments, that I saw some of that in her, but it's kind of hard to see that when she's only 2 or so, or 2.5. My wife was in total denial about that. But it was when she was 4 in 2021, we started seeing problems in her pre-K.
Okay. And that's, so pre-K, is that, so what age would she be then? About 4. So that's nursery in the UK. Just so for our listeners in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
So nursery,
she was 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was primary school is like our regular school. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before she goes into kindergarten, she does pre-kindergarten, which is something up until recently that we pay for and you do separately.
Oh, okay,
she was about 4.5.
Right. And what was the first kind of behaviours did you guys notice?
Just disrespect to those in charge.
Right.
And then there was a particular event. I don't really want to get into all the details of it, but there was an event where the things that she did and said were not what you would hear from a 4-year-old. And even if you heard them from an adult, they would be troubling. Okay. And that was the first real sign that we're going to have to get her checked out and see what's going on.
Yeah, of course. And obviously for you and your wife then, we're at a stage where you're thinking, okay, what is going on? There must have been a lot of worry then at this point, yeah?
From my wife, yeah, I'm not the worrying type. And I'm already thinking, we could already see that while she's part me and part my wife, she's got a lot of my genes. They seem to be dominant in her. It's good and bad. Unfortunately, there's the bad parts. So I'm already thinking like, well, yeah, I could kind of see it in her before this. I didn't need this event at pre-K to tell me that she's like me.
Okay.
And right away, I'm already thinking at that early age, I'm doing the diet for myself. I hadn't had it all figured out, but I'm already thinking like, well, let's do the diet for her,
Yeah. And you'd mentioned previously, and I'll touch into it, initially when you were going through this, you wanted to predominantly look into diet related, like a metabolic therapy with a ketogenic diet, but your wife, she wasn't as confident initially. Is that correct?
Well, because part of that, yes, that's correct. But part of the reason is because she's looking at me and she sees how I've been doing things for the previous couple of years, and I'm off and on, and it's not working because I'm not doing it right. Yeah. It only works if you work it, right? I'm not doing it right. But to her, that's her idea of how this diet works. And if that's how it works for me, well, why are we going to do it for her? But also, she's a kid. She's in school. My wife thinks how difficult it's going to be, so difficult. But me, I'm like, she's 6 years old. She eats what we give her. She's just, and some of that is true. She adjusts very quickly, and she does really well. But I'm just like, just drop the hammer down. She's going to eat what we give her. She has no choice. She doesn't want it. Tough. Go to bed hungry. That's how it was when I was a kid, But my wife wants to have a softer approach. And so when it was time for medicine, we did compromise. And Samantha was already not eating she never ate sugar. She never had juices and the typical stuff that kids have, but she wasn't low carb. So we decided to do low carb and medicine at the same time.
Right. Now, medicine first. What was the first prescribed medication Samantha was on?
The first one we did was guanfacine. It's a low blood pressure medication. And the reason that we use that is because the neuropsychologist was concerned with Samantha's anxiety. She already had some tics here and there, and her OCD, that the traditional stimulants you would use for ADHD were going to exacerbate her other symptoms. So for him, those were not an option.
Okay.
So the low blood pressure meds are supposed to work. And they worked a little bit, kind of similar to how meds work for me. They worked somewhat for some of the time.
Yeah.
And we had to monitor her blood pressure, and she ended up getting constipated from it. Like, there was just all these side effects. You know how it goes with medicines.
And that becomes harder for a child, because when you're an adult and you're taking a medication, you're aware of the fact and you're aware that it could come with side effects. A child has no concept really of that. They don't know why they're taking it really.
Right.
They maybe have it explained, they don't understand. And then coupling that with constipation, which is very painful, and for a child it can be very distressing as well. Yeah.
It had gotten really bad, and we had to take her to, because it was almost like she had UTI symptoms where she was just peeing too much. And some of it is just a nervous thing, an OCD thing, but there was something going on. We had to go to several doctors just to get the whole thing figured out.
Wow. So at this time then you'd obviously started a lower carb diet. You're trying to get into this way of eating. How was the adaptation period? Obviously she adapted quite well. Was it difficult initially giving up certain things? No.
Well, maybe for like a couple days, but the way we do things with her is we always make things work. And if it's something that she loves or she really wants, and we're going to find a way to let her have it and make it work. But we've always avoided dyes and processed foods, and we've always avoided grains and seed oil. So those things were out to begin with. So it's not like she went from eating a bag of chips to no chips. Her treats were already better ingredients. Hopefully a lot of it is just like single ingredient foods like carrots and dip and things like that. She was already eating a lot like that to begin with anyway.
Brilliant.
We just weren't so focused. We weren't focused on the carbs. We just started lowering her carbs. That's when we started tracking her food too, to see, well, because that's how my mind works. Like, well, if you're going to lower something, you got to know where it's at to begin with. So we started tracking too.
Of course. So obviously you'd already kind of had exposure to this way of eating to try to sort your own issues. So was it from your own lived experience that made you go, this could work for Samantha, or did you see any kind of content online specifically around children?
Only for epilepsy, never for mental health. And even for me, this is going back a couple years now, I wasn't really heavily involved in the community that's there, that it's for the keto for mental health. And I think it's grown a lot in the last couple years too. I don't remember this being out there like it is now. So I was still figuring it out for myself. It wasn't like I went on Reddit and I saw a post and somebody's using keto for their bipolar, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to try this and see. I was still doing my own thing. And this is where I talked about my friend Matt, because he was very similar, that he was kind of doing his own thing and not knowing that this was something out there. I was just doing it and it was working. I really didn't even know what it was. But yes, I did think that if it works for me, yeah, sure. Well, to me, I'm like, we're all human beings. We all have the same physiology. Whether she's my daughter or not, it probably could work for anybody if they did it right.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the caveat being, if they do it right and they are as consistent and they measure it. But it's also very important because you came here as a parent looking for alternatives to see, how can I help Samantha? Problem is, with this lifestyle, there isn't a focus on children's mental health. That's why I find it so important what you're doing, and that's why I wanted to have you on here for this discussion. I have not been exposed to anyone who is doing this for their child. So the minute I seen it, I was like, this guy's onto something. This works. He's doing the right thing, and it's a lived experience. And you can also, and you will go into details, there's going to be ups and downs. This isn't a linear journey. We're going to have days where it's more difficult, and you're very candid and you're open and honest, like we heard earlier. And I know you're going to come across and you're going to be a realist and you're going to tell people this is what you can expect. These are some of the challenges. So I think that's why it's so important, Stephen. So obviously school then, I'm assuming once we go into kindergarten where it's more of a kind of seated in an ordered, fashion, it's an environment for a child that's maybe a wee bit more, can't do as much. I take it was a struggle, for Samantha. Was there things that,
And it was the most concerning things were the social interactions with her peers.
Right,
And
okay.
it would be things like where if she gets hurt in front of someone, even in front of Lisa and I, she gets hurt, she doesn't know how to handle it. She gets embarrassed. She wants to hide. She doesn't want anybody near her. And if you go near her, she's going to freak out, and it's bad. So now this is happening at school. Her and her best friend are playing, and she falls off the slide and she gets hurt. Her friend wants to go over and see how she's doing, and she's yelling and screaming, "Get away from me!" And she throws a handful of mulch at her.
Yeah.
Well, now it looks like she took some kind of violent action against her classmate. The classmate's mom and my wife were really close friends, but the way it shook out was the mom is contacting my wife saying, "Well, how dare you let your kid do such and such to me?" And so now Samantha's moved out of her class. So now she's
Right.
halfway through the year. She's in a second class. She has another interaction. That mother throws an even bigger stink. The school has been great with us. That mother is going to the superintendent of schools, and you got to get this kid moved out of the class. And dealing with parents, it makes it more difficult. That mother tried to go to our dance class that the kids were in. There was never been an issue at dance class. Tried to get my daughter kicked out of dance. And luckily the dance class, they did the right thing. And they said, well, there's never been any problems here, so we can't. But they had to start documenting every single class that we had. And they had to write an email every time with a report.
Wow.
So kindergarten, Samantha was in 3 classes. Her second class, it was actually a good change for her.
Mhm.
She was doing very well in the second class. She loved the teacher, but then she got moved into by the time she gets moved into the third, the school year's almost over. How can you expect a kid to adjust like that? It's just so rocky. You can't expect a kid to go into kindergarten 3 classes like that. It's silly.
Yeah, that's and first. I would say the conduct of the parents there. You would think the parents, especially in today's age, would be a little bit more understanding. I see. Certainly, if I found out that someone had put mulch in my child's face, it wouldn't be something worth getting a child moved out of class. Children can have communication issues. Like Samantha at that time, there was communication issues because she doesn't feel good. She's struggling to communicate that. I think that there needs to be more understanding that people like Samantha have potential communication, issues that can develop, and it becomes as a behaviour, right? So like it's an action. She's trying to get the person away because she's distressed. This child doesn't understand it. I think the way that the parents went about that is abhorrent. Actually, I think that's terrible.
It is, yeah. It was just for me. I just couldn't understand it because if I was in their shoes, I never would have done that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then not only getting the child moved out of class, then when the child's in an environment, Samantha, who's doing well, she's thriving, she's enjoying dance, she's doing exercise, so this has got to be beneficial for her condition anyway. You're trying to get the child then moved out of a class. That's not fair. And I think I'm very happy to hear that the dance teachers, whoever was there, nipped that in the bud and they made sure that wasn't the case because that could have been very detrimental.
We're very fortunate that they took that stance, and had they not, there would have been a problem. I would have, because if they tried to kick her out, I would have raised a stink on that one. And unfortunately, their school was working with us, and the principal was doing everything he could not to move her out of that second class. And he was trying to pacify the parents. And my wife and I even said, can we have a meeting with the other parents? Can we do a face-to-face, a FaceTime? Can we send them an email? Can we get on a phone call? Can we try to explain our situation? Can we let them know, like, we just need a second chance? But she wouldn't go for it. And when the principal wouldn't make a move, that's when she went to the superintendent in schools. Now, principal's got no choice. They forced his hand, so he had to move her out. And he was apologetic, and you could see how sincere he was because he didn't want to move her out.
Okay. Now, see, for those who are not in the States, they may not know what a superintendent is. I don't. So what is their role within a school? Because we don't have them here.
So you have a district, and within the district, there's each individual school. Each school is going to have its own principal at the top of that school.
Right.
The superintendent is going to oversee the whole district.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So this is so they've went not only to the principal, the head of the school, they're now going to the head of all the schools in the local district, the top, to get a child in this point in kindergarten moved out of class. That's absurd. So obviously then the principal, he tried his best. He seems a very understanding gentleman. But his hands are tied. The powers that be, they have the final say. We understand that. So when Samantha's moved to the third class and it's so close to the end of the school term, do you find that there's any kind of does the behaviour, does her condition get worse because of that change, because of the uncertainty of what's going on?
So in the first class and the second class, she had a cycle. She joined the class, she did well in the beginning, and then she got a little unhinged.
Okay.
And when she joined the third class, it was basically that same cycle. She was good for the first however long, and then she kind of got unhinged. So it was basically the same pattern she went through in the other three. Whereas if she had stayed in that second class, she already went through that adjustment period, and she was doing pretty well. She could have just stayed there.
Yeah.
But the third class, she had to start. She started all over, right? So yeah, so she was in that unhinged period. If she had more time, she probably would have settled down and been okay.
And what people kind of don't understand is when a child has got ADHD and they're energetic and they're acting out, this is not bad behaviour per se. Now, it can seem bad behaviour, and sometimes it certainly can be, but this is communication. And there's obviously something there that's either distressing or stimulating, Samantha, in these classes, or something's going on. So obviously there's a bit of a pattern. Now, see when she's having bad days or bad periods, have you noticed that, obviously, before you were so strict with it, was there any kind of changes? Was she eating a wee bit more carbohydrates, or was it is that just the nature of the condition where it cycles like this?
It's a little bit of both because it
Okay.
is the nature of the condition. Because even when we have her stuff dialed in, like all it takes is for, she's sick and, she's surrounded by germs. So she's getting sick all the time.
Yes.
She doesn't sleep well. If she's low on sleep, it's going to contribute to her cycle. But yes, there have been times where certain food items or high carbs or whatever, yes, and she'll be doing well for a while. A lot of it is with her OCD that will come out
Right.
when she eats certain things, or she eats if it's a holiday and it's like an uncontrolled setting where I feel like it should be controlled, but it's not because maybe it's Christmas and she's eating extra stuff, and she's not like a celiac, but she's sensitive to gluten and wheat like I am, so that will make things worse. Definitely, we've seen that.
And so you're really stuck between the idea of trying to be strict, but also trying to find balance at certain times of the year. Because when it comes to Easter and things like that, and children having Easter eggs, in school they're having Christmas parties and things like this. But that's hard because either you take the child out and they're then isolated, they don't get to do the social things, or you run the risk for the child to be in the school, but then take this food that you can't guarantee the child's not going to eat some chocolate in school. So you're really stuck sometimes between a rock and a hard place trying to manage this as best as you can.
Yeah, and we do the best that we can. And one of the things you'll hear me say is that we strive for perfection to guide us, but we're not perfect. We simply do the best that we can. And we want her to participate. And if the teacher lets us know ahead of time that there's going to be a party, and fortunately, Samantha is awesome. She will ask and she knows, and she's so good that she just wants a little bit of this and that here and there, and it's enough for her. And we make it work for her.
Amazing. It's good that we're having a bit of a balance, because the problem is without balance, sometimes later on in life for a child it can become more difficult, because what you don't want is for you to work so hard through this, and then the child feels that when they get older they've missed out on so much, and to their own detriment. There's the pizzas, there's the chips, all of that stuff, and then what will come with Samantha will be an increase in mental health conditions, whereas most people may get a bit fatter and stuff like that. Samantha's cognitive functions will be affected by this food. So it's amazing that you're trying to get the balance, you're trying to do it as best you can, but you're also admitting you can't be perfect with this because it's an ever-changing environment and you need to balance the child's lived experiences in school, social circumstances, which sometimes you maybe struggle with anyway. So to further isolate her from these things, that doesn't seem like a good idea either, does it?
No, it's hard to find the balance, and it's taken some time, and luckily I have tried to soften my edges, and because I can be an extremist, and I want to say this is how it's going to be, and you're not going to have the junk, but it's taken a while, but we make it work. And there's a lot. I mean, if you want details, there's plenty of things I could share. Some of this is going up on our YouTube channel, how we do things to try to make it work for her. But fortunately, she's with her being only 7, she adjusts quickly and she works with us. We always keep her involved. She knows, she sees her chronometer app, she sees the tracking, she knows how we do things. And she's heavily involved in the process.
And you mentioned OCD. Now, I think OCD is one of the most misunderstood and misused terms in in general, just now, people think I need to turn sockets off when they see one as OCD. OCD can be quite a debilitating condition. Now, if you don't mind, what kind of symptoms of OCD do you think Samantha struggles with the most, just to spread more awareness?
Okay, so the typical things you might think of is the person who is switching the light switch on and off 6 or 7 times,
Yeah.
or somebody is the oven off. They go check, they go shut it off, even though it's off. They shut it off, and then they leave the house. They have to drive back home, make sure it was off. It's not that with her. It's things that I didn't even know existed. It's more placement of items and her remote on the couch next to her, and it's got to be in a certain spot. And when I sit down, it moves slightly, and she's got to put it back.
Yeah.
And if it's not moved, she struggles with that. And she's got certain areas around the house where she's got things set up. And it's interesting because I can relate because I'm very orderly in that way. And I also have this idea of my stuff, and I don't like anybody touching my stuff. And when I'm off, I can really be a jerk about it. Like I could snap at my wife. She cleaned the house. Like, why did you move? You know, and it didn't even really matter what she moved. But so Samantha's got that and she'll say that, like, don't touch my stuff. Why'd you move my stuff? And we just started this therapy with her. It's called No CD is the group. And it's the best there. I've done a lot of therapy in my life. They are awesome. And we're doing exposure therapy with her. And we've already seen a lot of improvement. It's been going really, really well.
So, and that's called No CD, yes?
No CD. Yeah, that's the name of the group.
Okay, and where is this group based? Is it just local to you, or is it online? Where could people maybe look at this?
It's all virtual. I believe they're national because when we did our intake, it was somebody in Michigan. The therapist that we work with, I'm not even sure where she is, but we do it on the computer, or if we go around the house, we do it on my phone. We're on Zoom.
Amazing. That's fantastic, and that's the beauty of the internet at the minute, where you don't need to then go to a clinic. You can do this at the comfort of your own home.
Right.
Just now, me and you are across the water from each other having a chat, so it's quite amazing, isn't it, what we can do? Now, speaking obviously on the OCD, the problem with OCD, especially for Samantha going into class, is things that she would maybe want in a certain way that could trigger her if they're moved. She has no control in certain environments. So I'd imagine then in classrooms there would have been quite a high amount of triggers for her OCD depending on certain things. Was that correct?
That is correct. And because of that and some of her other behavioral issues, she is in a special needs class. Okay. So it's a smaller class. She's got her own para there. And so they accommodate her very well.
Amazing.
To lessen some of that.
Brilliant. And so how long has Samantha now been in the special needs class?
They started her in first grade. She's in second grade now. So it was last year and this year. This year, second grade, we tried to get her into the general education class in the beginning of the year, and she made it about 30 days. She did really well, but she was having problems, and so they moved her back. We're hoping to start again in third grade with full general education. What we've been doing over the past couple of months with the improvement in her diets is slowly integrating her back into the general ed class. So she was going there, say, one time a day for one activity. Now she's going twice a day. Amazing. For short periods, and then she can go back to her other class where they accommodate her.
That's what I will say. It sounds like the school is very accommodating. They're really
awesome.
Working with Samantha really well. That's really, really kind of heartwarming to hear, because not only is she in an environment that can also maybe help her with, her OCD and her ADHD and really help her in the special ed class. They're not just leaving the child in that class. They're trying to get Samantha in as much as you can, and also being around her peers in the general kind of standard class as well, which I think is, now I may use the terms ASN and mainstream. That's just, mainstream is what you would call standard, ASN is what we call special ed. So if I do that, that's the terminology. So would you say when she was in the special ed class that did you see big improvements in her behaviour, maybe more stable? Has it been more nurturing for her?
It's definitely more nurturing. And so like in the beginning of the second grade, when she went into the class, she was really struggling, but they're like, in that class, they can't accommodate her as well. And there's not as much attention on her.
Okay.
And she needs frequent movement breaks. Yeah. So when she gets into the special class, she's got a lot of liberty. She likes to sit back in the corner by herself, and she likes to be independent, so they can let her do that. If she's in the middle of a test and she wants to get up and take a walk, she can go do that. They have a room called the calm room. Samantha loves to sing and dance, and sometimes she just needs to like go shake her willies out. She goes into the room and she sings real loud. So being able to do all those things is such a huge relief for her that you see improvement right away.
Amazing. So it's almost like a sensory room, like just a safe area where she can be herself, and so that's fantastic, and that's something that we have now in the schools in Scotland. We always have a sensory room for children with additional support needs, because it's important, because if you put these children with additional support needs in a standard mainstream classroom, and you just punish them for their behaviours, firstly you're giving the child trauma because they can't help it, and they're being punished for their own urges that they can't help. But secondly, it's at the detriment to their own education. It's not, school is not a one size fits all, although it's been drummed in all my life and all your life that it is. So it's really, really encouraging to feel that it's now more accommodating for people like Samantha, and it's going to give Samantha the best opportunity to get a really good education and to thrive. And I think that's heartwarming. I really do. And I think I really do like the idea, and I really think that school sounds fantastic. It sounds really good.
The school has been amazing. The staff there, we love them. We love the whole entire school, the whole entire staff, and they rearranged the school so that her school was supposed to end at 4th grade, but now she's going to be there through 5th grade too, and we're so thankful for that because they've been amazing.
So what would happen, see, after like 4th grade? So also in primary school in Scotland, we stay there to primary 7, so about the ages of 12, and then we go to secondary school. So how does it work in the school system in the US, just so I get a better idea?
Well, it depends on what town you're in, really. It's a little bit, then depending on how many schools they have, but typically it's kindergarten through 6th, and then 7th and 8th in a separate school, and then your high school, which is 9 through 12 in a third school. So you'd be in 3 schools. The way they had her set up, she was going to do K through 4 in one school, then 5 and 6 in another school, then 7 and 8, and then high school. So that would be 4 different schools.
Right.
Now she's going to be K through 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then high school. So it's 3 schools.
Right. Okay. And so that's the standard then. The 3 schools is the standard for guys there. Right. So totally different to us. So I just wanted to understand that. So now, so in a day like so say we have a day where it's more challenging for Samantha. So we're talking about days that maybe, I don't know how you would define them. Do you have a label for days she struggles a bit? Do we have a wee term?
Well, we go by her color chart at school. So blue is the best, red is the worst. So if she's had a red day, then that's a really bad day.
Right, okay. Now, take back, so she's having a red day, and say she's at home at the weekend and we're classifying this a red day. How does that look for you guys? How are the behaviours? What's the kind of challenges?
Lately, it's been a lot of disrespect. She sounds like a 13-year-old talking back to us. But what you mostly see is what I mostly suffer from, and it's the anger and the irritability and the short fuse.
Yes.
That's what we see a lot.
Okay.
And she is like me in a way that she'll go from she's perfectly fine and something happens, she's blasts off with a short fuse, and then minutes later she recovers and she's back like nothing ever happened.
Okay. What's the kind of methods that you found successful in maybe trying to not to sort that, but try to help the situation? What kind of advice would you give to parents who are struggling similarly with their child and maybe don't have some methods in place?
So depending on where I'm at with my diet, this is where diet plays a key role for me, is that if I'm off and I'm not the right person, I need to stay away because her and I are going to go at it. Because if I'm irritable and she's irritable, she says something to me I don't want to hear, then I'm yelling back at her.
Yes.
And it just makes things worse. So that's how things can be. But lately I've been doing so well. I said that I've been feeling the best I ever have. And it's like I have this level of calmness, and I'm a different person. So I'm able to calmly approach her and pull her aside. And lately what has been working is I'm trying to talk to her kind of like in a sciencey way, like, you're yelling and screaming. You're telling your mother that she's mean to you. Do you really think mommy's mean to you? Yeah. And she'll say, no, she's not. Well, why are you saying that? I don't know. Well, is that you, or is that just like your brain's malfunctioning, right? It's not working right now. And that's all it is. You need to calm down and take a deep breath. And I've been using these methods lately. Mm-hmm. And it's only because I'm doing my diet the way I should, and I'm this person that I want to be, that I can do that with her. And it seems to be really helping. It's been great.
Amazing. And do you think because of the contrast, when you're not feeling good, and maybe it can turn into a bit of a roaring match between the two of you guys, that she really is taking to this method from you, because she's like, right, well, Dad's calm. Dad's showing me that I don't need to be this angry. Do you feel that's a big benefit then?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. That's wonderful. And you know what? That's validation. That right there, that what you're doing is the right thing, because you're becoming a more calming influence, because it's hard, and I couldn't imagine how difficult it is, because I don't have a child, especially, or even I don't have a child, never mind a child with additional support needs. And you're coming from a place where you had trauma, and you had to work through that for the majority of your life. So it's amazing that you're able to recognise that your natural response, which would be, oh, my back's up, I'm annoyed, that's no longer sufficient. That does not work. And what that does is that further kind of encourages Samantha to, well, that's how I'm going to respond, because that's how Dad responds. So that's fantastic. And it's the validation that you're doing the right thing, with how you're feeling and how Samantha's taken to it, isn't it?
Yes. And I thank you for saying that. And that's why when people say, why am I HFBO? And that's why, because I can do it, like I explained before, a different way. And I could be at an 8 on the 10 scale, but I'm not going to be calm. I'm still going to be irritable. I'm still going to need to walk away when she's doing and saying certain things.
Yeah.
But when I do the HFBO and I do it the way it works for me, it's that transformation, and it makes that much of a difference.
Yeah. And one thing I really do like, you had some clips on your YouTube channel, and I'm going to put links to your YouTube channel here, because I want to really encourage listeners to go and watch, because it's fantastic. It's such a lovely dynamic, and it's real. You can see when you're trying to have conversations and you're trying to speak to the camera that Samantha can be, very much energetic in the background. She's whispering in your ear. She's having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great that, we get to see a real representation of how Samantha can be. We get to see how you deal with it. And we also get to see, you're very, very tolerable. But then your dad, you will draw the line and you say, right, that's enough. And you're doing it in a calm manner, which is, that itself is showing that what you're doing is right. And I think people are going to take a lot from watching it. One of the videos that I really liked is when you're just detailing kind of cooking and what she eats, and she's got the cheese. We call them cheese clouds here. She doesn't look like a child that's missing out whatsoever on food. She looks excited for that cheese.
Yeah, she loves it.
Yeah,
she does. And part of the way we make the diet work is, like, you compare the two cheeses, and one is a cheddar, one's a Gouda. And I may be saying it backwards, but the Gouda's maybe 74% fat and the cheddar's only 72. So I'm pushing the higher fat one on her.
Yeah.
That's how we try to make it work. Brilliant. Either way, she's going to be happy.
It's just really refreshing. It's real. I think that so many people want to paint a picture that life's perfect online. It's really not. And I love how this is not, there's no edited videos of Samantha on here. It's Samantha as she is, and you're detailing this is how it is and this is the challenges. That is so much more beneficial for people who are living with a child with additional support needs. They can relate to that, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. I think your approach is refreshing. I think it's realistic to a lot of people, and I really think it's going to help a lot of parents who are struggling, and a lot of parents, and what people don't realise, they don't have the knowledge when it comes to nutrition and the lived experience of what works and what doesn't work that you do. So it's so valuable, the knowledge that you have, and I'm just so happy that you're on a platform and you're sharing it on YouTube, because you've got a lot of information that you can offer people, mate. You really do.
Thank you. I appreciate all the positivity. It's really great. When I did that first video with her and I realized we're going to be like a family show, I want it to be like, we're just friends. We're just hanging out. Part of the thing is with the editing, like, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I'm still new at making videos. Yeah. I'm still new at posting on socials. I'm figuring all that out. But when we're in the kitchen and we're doing a video, I wanted it to be like, you are there with us. You're just hanging out. You're our friends, and we're just showing you what I do. That was my vision for it. Yeah, and I'm glad that it seems like it's coming through.
It's such a refreshing approach, because for people who are going to watch this, and there's going to be, I'm imagining, people who are dealing with this that are going to start to then keep up to date with what's going on with you guys, because they're going to look at it as inspiration for how they can deal with their children. Were you giving those people a realistic view of what your family life is like? You're taking people on a journey. People feel like they get to know you that way, and that's it. It's fantastic, and it's honest. and you're an honest man. I can tell. You can tell when someone's not an honest man. You're an honest man, and that's from even the discussions we've had there, and from what you do online. People are going to find value in it. But you're also very, very interesting. You have different things that you're interested in as opposed to this. And we had a wee discussion prior to you've got tenets that you like to live by. I love this, and I could never do it justice with detail on what they were. So if you would mind run us through, I'd love to have a chat about it.
All right, sure, I would love to. So the tenets are a thing I got from Jim Wendler. They're part of his 5-3-1 program. When you hear him, when you watch him, he's got the big gruffy beard. He wears a hat. You only see a little bit of this big, huge, muscly guy. But when he talks, he's eloquent, and he always has these great quotes. And I have all of his books. And the tenets is something that I stole from him long time ago. I have it for my own exercise programming, for the stuff I program for my wife, and I have it for all walks of life. And so tenets they're guidelines. So like for Wendler, that would be, he might say in his programming, one of his main tenets is you can't add something in without taking something out because you're just going to get overtrained.
Yeah.
And he would also say you never train to failure. You always leave a rep in the tank.
Yeah.
And so if you're designing a new program, you use these guidelines to make a sensible program that's going to work.
Yeah.
So I have my own, for my HFBO, I have my own tenets, and these are my key ingredients that I use for a recipe for success. So I'm going to run through them real quick so I can like shout them off, and then we can go back in more detail if you want, because there's a lot involved. All right. So number one is the HFBO. It all starts with the diet. It's high fat beef only. I aim for 90% fat. I also want to keep my calories above maintenance so I don't lose weight. Number two is the B minerals. That's an electrolyte company that we can get more into.
Yeah.
Number three is body movement and sunlight.
Yes.
Number four, love and be loved. And number five is enjoy life and have fun.
Amazing. I love that.
Oh, I might be having a problem with my camera here.
Oh, right.
Can you just give me a second?
Yes, of course.
Hang on, let me see if I can get that back in.
Okay. I'll see if I do.
Are we there? Hey! Check this out.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, see?
That is excellent. That's a better one than the last one.
Five, enjoy life and have fun.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. Oh my goodness. You got me concerned there. Brilliant. So the first one then, well, firstly, enjoy life and have fun. That's maybe the secret to happiness, isn't it? I think that's to be loved, to love, and to enjoy life, isn't it?
It is. And, what's the point? Why are we here on earth? Why are we living? Why are we conscious if we can't enjoy life and have fun? And when I'm off, I cannot enjoy my life. I am restricted by my old diet that I cannot enjoy life. That's why high fat beef only is liberating and it's not restrictive. I can enjoy my life and I can have fun. Do you want to know what that means to me? How I do that?
Yeah.
It's really simple. It's like taking a mundane task and making it fun. So I may have to go to the local Kohl's store to do an Amazon return, and then I have to go to the library to return some books. And that's like a 15-minute thing. Most people, you're just going to throw the stuff in the car and go. But that's not how I do it. When I'm on, I'm making it fun. So I ride a one wheel. You know what the one wheel is?
What, a unicycle? Is it? No,
no, it's a one wheel. It's like it's a skateboard with a wheel in the middle. It's an electric balancing board.
No, I've never
called
heard
one
of
wheel.
Wow.
They're incredible.
How hard is that?
They're incredible.
How hard is it to do that? So is it an electric battery?
It balances on its own, right? It's got sensors built in.
Wow.
It's extremely difficult to learn. It's not something like if you were here, I couldn't say here, just go hop on. You have to have the helmet on, and I have to give you a demonstration. And it's not very easy to pick up, but it's extremely exhilarating. It's a lot of fun, and you can do it in different ways. You can just like, now that I know how to ride, I can just go slowly as if I'm going at a walking pace, and it's still really fun. But I can ride very aggressively, and I have full pads on. I wear a full face helmet. I go on trails, and it's physically demanding to ride aggressively.
Wow.
So what I like to do is, if my returns for Amazon are small enough, I throw them in a backpack, throw all my pads in my helmet, and I'm going to ride my one. I'm not riding aggressively, but I'm going to ride the one wheel to Kohl's.
Wow. I
carry the one wheel back to the desk. I do my returns and I ride home, and it's like a blast. I love it. And the night before I'm doing this, I'm going to bed and I'm like jazzed up about it. It's like that effortless happiness that Brett talks about. Like, this is going to be cool. It's such who cares? You're just doing Amazon returns, but I make it fun. And then that library, I'm probably going to walk to the library. I'm going to put all, even if I got a lot of books and it's heavy, it's a 5-minute walk. Now I'm combining my body movement and my sunlight, and I'm having fun. And I'm also getting a task done. I'm walking to the library. Like, how simple is that? But it's so easy, and it makes life fun for me.
Then I need to go and have a wee check about a one wheel, because that's news to me. I've never heard of it. It does sound difficult, very difficult actually. So what kind of speed does a one wheel go to? What are we looking at?
The one that I have, it will max out at 18 miles an hour, but I don't go that fast. I'm content at 14, 15 miles an hour because I have had some crashes and it's dangerous. And if you go on the one wheel Reddit, you'll see people posting x-rays of broken bones. And
Oh wow!
you can push the board too. If you push the board too hard, it'll die on you and it just tosses you off.
Wow, that sounds very fun. That's the kind of stuff I'm into.
Another way that I practice to enjoy life and have fun is a lot of my activities, and they're also combined with the body movement and sunlight. I like to kayak, I like to canoe, and just a simple thing like working from home, I can take a lunch break and I can go hit the local creek and I can get a 20-minute paddle in, and I'm out in the sun, and I love it. It makes my whole day to be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And like you said, there's a big part of kind of doing activity that makes you happy to boost your mental health. That's something that a lot of people don't really focus on, doing the things that you love and doing things that are fun. People think when you become an adult, you stop doing fun stuff. I never want to ever stop doing stuff that I find fun. I don't care what it is. Give me something that's fun. It's good for the mind. It's good for the heart, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, if you don't mind, I would love to go through your tenets in just a wee bit further detail. So if you want to start even with the first one, because I know we skipped to the end, but that was too good. I had to. But even the first one, if we can just run them through briefly, because I think this is going to be something that's going to be helpful for a lot of people.
Okay, well, so number one was the high fat beef only. I've already spoken a lot about that. So, part of the reason I'm doing the basic videos now is because people don't even know like really what fat percentage is or how you track it. I use an app called Chronometer. You put all your food in, you tap the icon, it shows you your percentage of fat. I'm trying to keep my fat 90% or higher. That's the 90-10. But it's not perfect. It's not always 90. There's days I got to go higher than that. And I talked about my maintenance calories, and people don't even know what that is. So maintenance calorie is the amount of calories you eat every day to where you will maintain your weight. You won't gain or you won't lose. Yeah. I did the calorie restricting thing in the past. I spoke about that. I got too skinny and I don't want that to happen. What I found is that eating high fat, I can eat way above maintenance and I still lose weight. And especially if I'm adding my sprinting in, which we're going to get to, sprinting blasts away your body fat. Yeah. So I'm getting leaner, but in the process I'm losing weight. I just want to make sure I don't do that too quickly. So I'm eating at or above my maintenance on almost every day. That's what I'm doing. Brilliant. People want to know what that looks like. You can go to my X account. The MT4MH on X. I've posted some things on my pictures of my food. I have a video where I'm in the kitchen showing you what my beef fat looks like. My meals are pretty simple. It's like a big pile of fat and a small pile of meat. And that may sound boring, but the fat that I've got is from prime rib. It's the best fat you can get. When the stuff goes on sale for the holidays, I stock up. I literally am buying like 40 or 50 pounds at a time, twice a year, and saving it. And I love it. I love every bite of every meal. And my meat is always going to be different. Sometimes it's a prime rib. Sometimes it's a top round. It's all these different. I'm typically just pan-searing them. Yeah. I've gotten to the point where in the beginning, everything was well done. Now everything is as raw as possible. But even that, like if you take, there's different ways of cooking things. I could take a top round, which is like usually a roast cut. You can cook it like a roast. I like to sous vide my food. I can sous vide it. I can pan sear it. I can roast it in the oven, and it's going to come out 3 different ways. So it can be different every time. If I don't really care to do that anymore, but as I was transitioning, it's fun to have a little bit of variety that way.
Prime rib fat, it's the best. It's the best, mate. So you would never get sick of that, would you?
No, but here's what I find is so that when the prime rib goes on sale and I'm eating it for a couple weeks, it tends to end up feeling like it's too mushy and too tender for me, and that I crave having something like a top round where it's got more of a chew to it. So I like to alternate back and forth. One of the cool things is my wife has been eating a lot of beef lately, and she gets the prime rib. She gets the rib eyes, but she doesn't want all the fat. So it's like a match made in heaven. She's eating beef, which is happy. I'm making me happy, and she gives me all the fat trim and all the fatty parts off of it, and it's great.
All you want in life is is a wife that gives you the fat from the ribeye. Let's be honest. It doesn't get any better. And so
as long as she's eating the meat, that's all.
Yes, exactly. As long as the meat's getting eaten, I'll eat the fat. Now, tenet number 3 then, if you want to go into a wee bit of detail about that, because I think these are fantastic.
Okay. So that's body movement and sunlight.
Yes.
So 2 things that have been always majorly important for me. It's like me and the sun, it's like we are one of, how do I say it? Like we're one and the same.
Yes.
It's like the sun is such a big part of me and such a big part of my life, always has been.
Brilliant.
And I always struggle when fall comes and the sun gets further away and the days get shorter, and then we set the clocks back in November, and I've always had the depression setting in. And what's cool about the diet is the past couple of years, if I'm pretty deep in ketosis around that time, it doesn't affect me as bad.
Amazing.
It's way different. But sunlight is so huge for me. And like my wife likes to joke that, the sun's calling you, you're going to go see the sunset. Like it does, it calls me, like I'm craving it. I got to get out there and have the sun. Part of the reason I'm so tan now is because this winter, my New Year's resolution, 2 things I wanted to do was start meditating and start doing the Wim Hof breathing, which is a breath hold exercise he does.
Yeah.
So I started that in January, and I discovered that in my back porch, small little back porch, kind of like an entranceway, in the morning, even in winter, it's sunny back there. And on a 35-degree day, it's like 70 degrees in there. So I'm in there and I'm trying to meditate, or I'm doing a breathing exercise, and it feels warm. I'm taking my shirt off. I'm getting sun. It's January, and it's like, oh, it's like July, man. This is great. So I did really well through this winter with that. And then I also discovered similar thing on my side porch, which is south facing. So it faces the sun all day. In there in the afternoon, again, it could be like 30 degrees out. It's 80 degrees in there. I pull up the shades. Now, here's another way that I enjoy life and have fun. Say I'm doing something like laundry. I got to fold a bunch of clothes.
Yeah.
It's January, 30-degree day. I go in the porch. I pull up the shades, take my shirt off. I am like sunbathing. I feel like I'm on the beach, and I have music on, and I'm folding my clothes, and I'm getting sun. People are asking me like, did you guys go on vacation? Why are you so tan? I typically am pretty tan, but not this time of year, because I've gotten so much sun. Because it's like, my wife likes to tease me about going to see the sunset, but it's like medicine for me. It's like my medication, and the breathing exercise also helps me, but the sun is like medicine, and I need to be outside and getting as much sun as possible.
Yeah. You've got a perfect setup where even in the winter, you can go out the back, you can go to the side. It's great. I wish we had similar here. We, in the winter, we get sundown about 3:30 some days. Would you believe? So
that's early.
But the problem is, when you grow up in Scotland, you're kind of used to it, isn't it? So vitamin D supplementation throughout the winter for us is essential, because if you don't, I will notice a reduction in my mood as well. Like I do start to get lower mood, and it's, people say, like in Scotland, how could you get seasonal depression? You'd have it 12 months of the year. But you notice a difference with the weather, and it's actually made us want to desire to go to a warmer climate. The more that I'm looking into the benefits of the sun. Yes, exactly. I hear Paul Saladino talk about Costa Rica, and I'm like, oh my goodness, let me go.
Yeah.
But it would be nice, but at the same time, it's I'm certainly not in a position to go to Costa Rica anytime soon. Now,
yeah, it's funny because I feel the same way about wanting to move to a warmer climate, and especially when I'm not doing well, and I still have that urge to leave my environment, and somehow I can leave my troubles behind.
Yes.
But we love this school so much that we're not, even if I had an opportunity to go to Florida right now, I probably wouldn't take it, because we want to just keep her in this school until she's out.
Now, see the next one. I absolutely love it. It could be the most important. So, to love and be loved. Tell me what that means to you, Stephen.
Well, hang on a second. Can we go back to the body movement?
Yes, of course. Sorry.
Because that was half of number 3. I spoke about the sunlight, but I didn't. We can do it in any order you want, but I can speak about the body movement and the sprinting, and then we can get to the love and be loved.
Yes, please, actually, because we spoke yesterday about the sprinting. I'm interested.
All right, so number 3 is body movement and sunlight. We already spoke about the sunlight part of it, but moving my body has always been a major part of my life. I did Little League and soccer and the Pop Warner football and everything when I was a kid, and I've always been extremely active. Yeah. And I've always been into yoga and stretching. I'm extremely flexible.
Amazing.
And I've done CrossFit, and I've done all the different workouts out there. I've done the powerlifting. I used to run 5Ks, all that kind of stuff. And I have mobility routine that I do that I've been refining and changing for the last 20 years. Twice a day. It's first thing in the morning. It's at night. I do that. And it's just extremely important to me. And when I slack off on that, that's like medicine for me too. When I slack off on that, my body starts to hurt and then my mood's going to go next. And one of the ways that I can combine body movement, sunlight, enjoying life, I can just simply go outside when it's sunny out and I can stretch outside. I have mats I put down and I can stretch and I do foam rolling and stuff like that. I kind of have an idea for, I had put some sprinting up already on my YouTube. I kind of want to have a section where I can have this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try to figure it out, but I'd like to film this mobility routine I do, because a lot of it is standard poses and things you've seen, but I have my own little twist on things. I think it would be cool. There might be people out there that might be interested in that.
Yes.
The body movement now is exercise. Exercise has been a big part of my story. I spoke about how it can have a negative effect. It can make me irritable and angry if I'm heavy lifting and they do it too much.
Yeah.
So this is where sprinting comes in. And this is the inspiration of Dr. Sean O'Mara. You guys, anybody out there, you guys should check out Sean O'Mara if you haven't already listened to him or go follow him. He is a body optimizer and he works with a lot of like CEOs of companies, high level execs, things like that, trying to get people to eliminate their visceral fat. Well, what is the visceral fat? That's the fat that's deep inside us around our organs. And I'm not going to be the one to throw the science at you, but he'll tell you that visceral fat it puts out inflammatory markers inside you. It's making you sick by having the visceral fat. And the longer you have it, the sicker you're going to be and the longer it takes to recover from it.
Yeah.
And when I started hearing him talk about sprinting, I'm like, I can't sprint. I'm picturing like Usain Bolt, like these high level Olympic athletes. I can't do that. I'm not a sprinter. I've never sprinted in my life. But I was so intrigued by this guy and started listening to all of his podcasts. And a year ago, I started sprinting, but it's like, I'm not like setting any world records and I'm not going any great distances. I'm sprinting for me. And it's been absolutely amazing and life-changing. And this is coming now. Sprinting is like the only main exercise I do. I like to hang. I do pull-ups sometimes, but I like to hang.
Yes.
I have a couple pull-up bars around the house. I find hanging to be extremely beneficial for my shoulders, especially if I can do long hangs. I also have a set of rings. I like to hang from the rings and I'll do one arm, let my body spin a little bit. I'll do the other arm. But besides that, sprinting is my main exercise. Now, this is coming from a guy who I have a full gym downstairs, nothing elaborate, but I have all the equipment. I wrote this down so I didn't leave anything out. I have a squat rack, barbells, a couple different barbells, plates, fractional plates. I have the power block dumbbells that go from 5 to 90. I've got a whole set of really nice kettlebells from 4K all the way up to 70K. I've got a band set up, which is similar to the X3 bar, but it's like my own DIY. I made my own board and bar with handles. I've got a whole set of medicine balls. Medicine balls I love, and this is one of the things I've taken from Wendell that I like is doing throws. I feel like it's very appropriate for our bodies to be throwing. Mm-hmm. I have medicine balls, 5, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, 50. I'm sorry, 40, 55, 70, and 90. Wow. The 90 I'm not so much picking up anymore. The 70 I'll pick up, and I have a platform up the side of the squat rack. I'll just pick it up, and then I'll pick it up and carry it and put it back down. Love that stuff.
Yes.
I have all this equipment, but I'm out there sprinting. It's just me. I'm just out there sprinting. I'm not using any equipment. And I've done all these different workouts and I've done the kettlebells and the bands and blah, blah, blah. Sprinting has been transformational for me. And I'll tell you why. There's two main reasons. The first reason is that I can push myself extremely hard on a sprint. It does not trash my body. I've never had once where I'm irritable and angry the next day. I don't have nagging injuries. Now, I might get some soreness, but it's your general soreness that when you work out, you enjoy that kind of soreness.
Yes.
And speaking of soreness, when you sprint, you might think that you're going to get sore in your legs. And I did. My Achilles and my calves. I had already been I'm barefoot. I've been doing barefoot shoes and barefoot walking for years. And so when I sprint, I'm on the balls of my feet. But I was getting some soreness, but shocked to see that I'm pumping my arms now, right? I'm getting sore in my shoulders and my pecs, almost as if I benched, but in a little bit of a different spot that I'm not used to. Mm-hmm. Soreness in my tricep area, which is kind of hard to define. It's not like any other tricep. You do a closed grip bench or you do skull crushers or press downs, all these kickbacks. The sprinting makes my triceps sore in like this different area that I've never felt sore in before.
Yeah.
Core, core, I guess I could kind of understand, but all the other soreness that goes along with it was like amazing. Like, I can't believe I'm not even doing it. I'm running. I feel like I'm barely pumping my arms, but I feel like I'm leaning out. I'm putting on muscle all over, and I can push myself hard, which is what I crave, which is the medicinal part for me, is that I can push and I can have a goal and I can try to beat that goal, and that keeps me motivated. So and it doesn't trash my body. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that sprinting puts my ketosis into overdrive. So if you listen to Sean O'Mara, he'll tell you about the science about it, blasting your visceral fat. He does MRIs on people, and he can show you what the visceral fat looks like before the sprinting and after. So and I can feel it if I run sprints within 36 to 48 hours, I'll feel a little bit more leanness in me. It's great. Wow. So I just kind of put it together in my head that if the sprinting is blasting the fat out of you like that, you're burning this fat, creating more ketones. I've had times like last week where my ketones have been high 3s, low 4s every night. I did a heavy round of sprints on Wednesday. It was my first time in a couple of weeks. Thursday night, I'm 6.0. Friday night, I'm 5.5. Now, my diet was the same. Those days I ate, because I sprinted, I ate a little bit more meat. I ate higher calorie. Normally, to get ketone numbers like that, I got to be calorie restricting, eating almost no meat. And I've seen this in the past with sprinting where my ketones are rising like that. So it's like it puts my ketosis in overdrive.
Wow.
So how could you not love it?
I think it's a really good, effective form of exercise, and it's far better for building cardio than long distance kind of zone 2, zone 3 jogging, isn't it?
It is. And if you listen to Sean O'Mara and how he tracks his patients, he'll have guys that come in that are long distance runners, and he does an MRI. They have a lot of visceral fat. He puts them on a whole protocol. They go carnivore. They usually add in ferments with it. No alcohol, no processed foods. He has a whole list of things he does with his clients. Amazing. But he wants them to stop long distance running and start sprinting. And they come back maybe 3 months later and they've still got a lot of visceral fat, and he's trying to troubleshoot. Well, sure enough, they're addicted to their long distance running. They can't give it up. And he convinces them, and as soon as they start sprinting, the visceral fat goes away.
Wow. I wasn't aware of the effects on the visceral fat with sprinting, so that's fantastic, and it's something that I would like to incorporate more. We do sprints, maybe more so hill sprints, but no, you've inspired me. I need to start doing 3-4 times a week, get some sprints. Now, how many sets do you do? Is it any particular kind of distance? How does it look?
So for me, I think it's going to be a highly individualized thing. So for me, I'm only doing 4 sprints, but of those, it's only really that fourth one that is my really strong sprint. I'm just out on the bike path on my house, and I'm literally like, I start at the bench. I'm jogging from the bench. When I hit the fat tree, I start to increase my speed. And then when I hit the next fat tree, that's when I'm going to start sprinting. So I don't even know the measurement. I don't even know how long I'm running. I'm trying to make it to the sign at the end.
Brilliant.
But I like to track my workouts because I want to see my progress. This is how I've been. I track everything, right? So I do it in percentage. So how hard am I pushing myself?
Yeah.
My first one is going to be 30 to 50%. I'm just kind of jogging. I'm practicing my breath, my rhythm. I'm pumping my arms. The second one is going to be 70% or so. So now I'm kind of running, but I'm not really sprinting yet. And then I'll do maybe an 80%. Now I would consider that a sprint, but it's a light sprint. And the last one, I'm going to push myself. But like Wendler would tell you, I'm never going to push to 100%. No. I'm always going to leave a rep in the tank. So I'm pushing hard, but it's that last one that really is the meaningful one. And what's cool about it is if I'm working my breath and I'm pumping, I get this tingling sensation like in the solar plexus. And it's very much like what I get when I do the Wim Hof breath holds.
Yes.
And for anybody who doesn't know, you do 30 breaths, and on the last breath, it's exhale, and then you hold your breath. And for me, before I started doing this, I could hold my breath like 10 seconds. You count to 10. Normally you would take a big breath in and try to hold. This way you're taking breaths, you breathe out and hold. And I'm routinely doing over 2 minutes. It's like no problem on that last one. Wow. 2.5, 2:45, and my eyes closed and I'm like chilling the whole time. And if I do the breath right, I get that same tingling like in my solar plexus, and you feel it through your whole body. When I get to do that sprint right, I get that same feeling, and it's exhilarating. It feels so good. I'll do that last sprint, and then I'll walk for a good 5-10 minutes, and I'll just keep my breathing up, deep breathing, to keep that tingling sensation going. and it's so energizing, and it's like the best medicine. It feels awesome.
You've inspired me. I need to start getting into the sprinting, and also I'm aware of the Wim Hof stuff, and I would actually love the opportunity to have you on another time for us to discuss your experience with the Wim Hof stuff, because I'm a bit of a novice to it. I've only been exposed to him kind of online. I've watched a couple of things, the Vice documentary, etc. I've never tried it myself, so that was something I'd really like to kind of have a discussion with.
Sure.
Now, Stephen, for everyone who's kind of listening to this and they want to check out your content, where would you say the best place to reach you and to watch, a day in your life and keep up to date with Samantha's journey?
Well, you're seeing my handle right here. I'm at MT4MH on YouTube, on X. Facebook, I'm there, but I'm not that active. Insta, I think, is the only one that they require a certain amount of characters. So I think I'm MT, the word for,
Yes.
MTFORMH. But I would say X and YouTube are the places where I'm at the most right now.
Yeah. And for those listening, finally, before we wrap up here, Stephen, have you got any kind of advice, anything you would like to kind of share? Just a final bit of advice here. We've went through a lot today. It's been very informative, and I do appreciate your time. Any kind of nuggets here that you'd like to, for people who are coming from having children, are struggling, they're seeing some behaviour issues, they're not sure where the root is, the doctors are wanting to push medication quite heavily. You get any kind of advice what to do?
Oh man, that's a tough one. How much time do I have?
Yeah, of course, as much time as you need.
Well, we didn't speak about my fourth tenet, which is where I would probably go with this answer, is to love and be loved.
Yes.
Do we have a few minutes for that?
Of course we do, yeah.
All right, so that's my fourth tenet, is love and be loved. And for me, that's family and community. And when I'm off and our family is off, there's really not a lot of love going on. But when I'm on, like I've been lately, and the dynamic has been so great, and now in the last 12 days with creating the content, and we're all involved and we're all on the same page, and we're not pulling from each other, we're all coming together. There's been a lot of love in the house, which has been great. But this community, the carnivore and the keto, and it's not just carnivore, it's everybody in the community that's on X have been so phenomenal. And before that, it was Tim and Matt that I met. It's Diane pumping me up since I got on socials. But the positivity that I have received from within this community, I had no idea this was out there. And it's filling a hole in me that I didn't even know was there, because I'm a 10++ lately. I didn't think there were any holes to be filled, but there's this love coming from the community that I can feel. And that's why I say, when I start my videos now, I'm saying we're spreading our love. We spread our love and we share our ketogenic lifestyles, because there's just so much love to go around, and all the love that I'm receiving, I want to be able to spread it back. So advice for somebody in the situation you explained, just patience.
Yeah.
Go slowly, love your child, and do the best that you can. And if you need help, if you're already at my channel, I'm going to be putting out content for you where you can make healthy choices to clean up your diet. Just go slow, be loving. I would say the same thing to you. If you're going to start sprinting, go slow. Take it easy on yourself. You don't want to get injured. You don't want to do too much too fast.
We need to schedule in for another discussion, Stephen, because there's so much that I want to speak with you about, because you're a very interesting and informative gentleman. So it's only
Thank
right
you.
because I've enjoyed this so much that I allow you to wrap us up, because you've been fantastic. You have been absolutely fantastic, mate. I really have appreciated it. Oh, what's that?
Oh, wait. I'm having some camera troubles again.
Oh, no.
Let me see.
I think it's the platform that I'm using here, Stephen.
And it might be me, because I have a new webcam that I just hooked up.
Yeah, and it's been looking great.
I was having some issues with it. Give me a sec. I'll figure it out.
No, it's okay. I'm just making sure it's not something my end. Hold on. That's fine.
No, I think I got it. Hey, are we there?
Yeah, we're here.
All right, we're signing off.
What's it?
Fix yourself with fat.